welcome to XReality Podcast. I'm the host, Dominic Wu, and beside me is my guest, Nate Harper. Hi, Nate. Could you share a little bit about your background with us?
Yeah. Hey, Dominique. Thanks for having me today. Excited to be here. Yeah, I'm Nate, business development manager for AWE, basically professional handshaker. I work both with all of our sponsors, exhibitors, basically all the technology companies in XR, AI, and emerging technology, and then also work with our enterprise team. So these are all of the industrial buyers, the B2C buyers that are coming to our conference that are looking to learn more about XR or emerging technology and how they can use it internally to save money, create faster processes, or communicate and collaborate better.
Wow. We know that you are like a more like a business side of AWE, right? And AWE for me is really meaningful because I think back in 2022, I start joining AWE and it becomes I would say every time when I joined AWE, I would treat it as, family gathering, right? A
Yeah.
lot of XR people and it's a lot of them, and every year you can see the same people. I know it's growing, but you can see the people always there, right? And
Yeah.
then for me, it's like my milestone, right? What I have done this year is just like, hey, it's also for me. It's good to have a deadline for a creator to at least deliver something. So yeah, so this is really really good kind of XR event that showcase the most advanced and a lot of product actually announced during AWE, like
Yeah.
XR products. So yeah, I really appreciate you, Ori, right, and also Sonia and a lot of people that help out and make this happen.
Yeah,
Cool.
you're exactly right. I mean, I think we get the family aspect and like that feedback a lot. We're going on to our 17th year of AWE now as a conference. And we always use the acronym AWE, which stands for Augmented World Expo, but it's because Ori started in augmented reality, but it's so much more than that. I mean, of course it covers all of XR, but also, like I said, especially like physical AI and personal AI and of course agentic AI now, which is really helping anyone become an XR developer, right? Which is so
Mm.
exciting. But that family aspect, you're totally right. I mean, this is still a small, growing industry. I mean, I tell people all the time, we're still in like the spring of XR. We haven't fully hit, of course, like what everyone's waiting for, which is where everyone's wearing a headset or smart
Mm.
glasses. And so people who have been working in this industry for so long or have been coming to AWE year over year and seeing each other. And, we hear a lot of times, especially for even like companies, AWE acts as almost like their meeting point because people are working remote everywhere, so it's like times where people can get together, share ideas, and the technology is so personal and requires you to be in person, right? Like some
Mm.
of these new headsets or new tools, maybe you don't have the opportunity to try at home. And so going to one central place where you can try out this device and that device and learn about these tools or this software is so valuable. So of course I'm biased, but I think even just conferences in general, I attend CES every year. There's others like Hannover Messe in Germany and others where I'm personally learning about new industries or new ways that people are using not just technology, but really all types of different things. So yeah, we're really excited to have the opportunity to bring the community together. And at the end of the day, that's all we're doing. People like yourself, Dom, are the ones who are, creating the content and what people are using. And we're just excited to be a part of that and bring everyone together.
Yeah, yeah. So you mean like for example, you mentioned that you went to CES and some events in Germany, and as far as I know, CES is very very different vibe.
Yeah.
Than AWE because I've been to CES a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, And I remember every time it was just like a rush, right? It's just like, wow, I need to get through that. And there are always a lot of people. It's more like a commercial place, right? And while every time when I went to AWE, it's more like, hey, long time no see. And I remember every time when I want to get through an aisle or something, I just like, hey, shaking hands. Hey, I haven't seen you for a while. And it takes like a 30 minutes just to get through point A to point B, like a very short distance because everybody knows each other. So that's why I think AWE is successfully, make people feels like a family for XR, right?
Yeah, you're totally right. And of course, we can't ignore, CES brings in, 60,000 people from all different types of industries. And so I think one of the, an AWE bringing in around 6,000, of course, and business to business focus. So it's not consumer focused. And so, that really helps kind of bring in a curated group of people who really care about the industry or want to learn, want to see how they can use it internally for their processes. And I think that also helps curate that like family vibe as opposed to, feeling like you're in Las Vegas and running around people and just trying to get to one place and do as much as you can within a given time. So it's different energy. I love both. Yeah.
Cool, cool. So, what do you see, for example, like the trend right now? Because we know that currently there are some big news happening in VR, right? For example, like a Meta start discontinue the support for B2B, and also they are trying to set. They said that Horizon World is not will be no longer support the VR version, right?
Sure.
A lot of things that feels like, wow, are you going to shut down? But I know that Meta later on wrote it out of like an email, like, don't worry, everything still be okay. We just, da da da. We focus on AI. And I know that VR is not just one company, right? There are a lot of different VR companies, right? So, what do you see the trend? And you can see like a smart AR glass people start thinking about or like because Meta for Ray-Ban, right? They are
Hmm.
successfully, that Ray-Ban is probably the one of the only few products that Reality Lab is actually earning money. So I think that they put a lot of like a money resource, more like a focus on more like smart AR glass. And you can see like Google, right? And
Yeah.
also a Snap, right? All those companies, they are kind of like there's a competition, more like spatial AI, more like a smart AR glass. What do you see the trend like from VR to AR? And what types of, for example, like what types of device or company you think is worth of, spotlight? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think VR is not going anywhere, right? I mean, of course, we all remember when Facebook officially changed their name to Meta, right? And when there was so much excitement around the idea of the metaverse, and I know that's a taboo word to say now to a lot of people, but I think it really helped create such a strong point of contention and it really helped raise VR into what it is today. And although, sure, of course, when you ask about trends, I think it'd be ridiculous not to mention that AI hardware and especially smart glasses, as we call it, is the hot topic right now, right? But I think we've also noticed that, hey, although VR, think about the same trend and cycle with VR a few years ago and all the hype around that. That's where AI hardware is right now, and it's gonna keep going up and down until mass adoption hits. And so VR is not going anywhere. In fact, I think there's going to be a lot of exciting hardware releases probably in the next year, if not in 2026 or early 2027. And luckily, I'm in a position to where I'm working with all of these different companies like Google, like Meta, like Snap, Samsung and the likes. And so I'm really excited about, the future of VR. But yes, right now, AI hardware is all the rage. And of course, even when you look at content creation that isn't in the immersive space, but it seems like basically every Instagram reel I'm seeing now, or all short form content, a lot of it is recorded on, if it's not Meta Ray-Bans, other, smart glasses. And so I think there's a really exciting point right now to where people are feeling comfortable wearing glasses in public that, can pick up voice, can, record images, take pictures, and even kind of dissect your surroundings and give feedback based on that. And that's going to help with all future XR, augmented reality glasses very soon, to where you can overlay digital objects on top of your physical world. Of course, mixed reality, virtual reality, like these AI hardware devices, especially, most notably Meta Ray bands, are going to help with adoption overall. So I think that is incredibly exciting. But when you ask about trends, yes, of course, that's it. And of course, also AI is helping people who don't have a technical background also develop and make their own software or their own tools. I've never been a very technical person. I'll be honest, I've always kind of come from a more marketing sales background and kind of happened upon XR and got an opportunity and stuck with it for the last 7 years and been incredibly blessed in that. But now I have the opportunity with no technical background to make my own, potentially my own software company in the future. So, and others are doing the same. And so I think also, whereas AI hardware has a moment, we're seeing agentic AI really allow people to make their own content.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because, for example, like before, right now I'm also working kind of on the side project, which is turning like some interesting, for example, like a concept, and also education content. For example, right now I'm working with a biology professor, turning her content or like something, for example, like she said that, oh, I need like a animal cell like a structure and teach me like help me to visualize for my students. So
Mhm.
it's a really great opportunity. For example, like STEM. I was trying to work on, for example, I'm more um, before it was more for literature, but I just realized, wow, in order to create a really precise, right, a place, the history and the clothing, everything, all the details need to be so good. And also, I think for a humanity teacher, they are really picky about what they want and very
Mm.
customized. Every teacher has different needs. So I was like, oh God, I couldn't create a template for everybody. It's more like a yeah, because those like a very high level and critical thinking, and everybody has its own needs. So
Mhm.
I just decided to do for STEM. Yeah, and it's really, really good to, just to see the visualization. And I think a 3D definitely has a lot of values. And just echoing what you said that before I need to, hire somebody on Fiverr to help me set up some, backend or, because I don't know backend.
Mhm.
And I don't really know how to, do different types of coding. For example, React. I just uh, learn something online a little bit. And by using Cloud Code, I just feel like, wow. And I
Yeah.
even ask Cloud Code to, hey, how to set up the backend. And Cloud was hand hold my hand and tell me each steps. And I have question. I was like, hey, why use MongoDB? Why not using AWS? And you will tell me like, oh, for the starter, it's better because you have 3D object. For AWS, you need to pay like two or $300. So compare the price. This is the best for you. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing. And I feel like it really helps me block a lot of things that I want to do. Yeah, just like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Vibe coding has completely changed how, all developers in general. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, what do you see, for example, like you mentioned, personal AI and also like a smart AR glass, right? And what do you
Mhm.
see like the trend? Because you see, I mean, recently I listened to a lot of like podcasts, or you see like Jensen Huang there, NVIDIA. They have a
Mhm.
lot of different. There are a lot of things happening, right?
Yeah.
And I know XR is like we are focusing on XR, right? We have the wearable device. But if you
Mhm.
see outside, for example, like I was really today this morning I just listened to like one of the podcasts and they talk about the data center and send robots to the moon. I mean, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, wow, you see, like we were like focusing on like a couple of now technology, but a lot of pretty crazy and super rich people they are trying to move the manufacture and also the productivity to the moon because they said that the
Mm.
friction of the movement and transportation and it's very low because it's in space there's not many traction or the heat for data center you don't even need to build the cooler system because it's very cold in space so
Yeah.
there are a lot of advantages and also use solar panel so what do you see the entire technology turning towards to? For example, like I know we focus on this, but
Yeah.
uh, is there any like other trends? Like for example, are we all going to space or other like very crazy like a tech trend?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as a kid who grew up like wanting to be an astronaut and wanting to go to space, I think, I mean, you look at the Artemis launch, this past week,
Yeah,
even,
right.
like all of that. Yeah, all of that's incredibly exciting. It's hard for me to wrap my head around, servers being in space because the temperatures are lower and it helps with cooling or even colonization in space. That's maybe a little too hard for me to wrap my head around quite yet. But I think there's really like two other industries like outside of XR that like we're seeing very like obvious trends in and are really exciting to me. You mentioned the most obvious one, robotics and physical AI are everywhere. And I think it's funny because we've seen manufacturers, especially in automotive and other large manufacturing industries, using physical AI and robotics for decades now, right? I mean, especially in automotive, like robotic arms and have been, essentially building, a lot of automobiles for years now. And so that's really exciting. But when we look at personal robotics, especially like in home, I think that's incredibly exciting. Would I love a robot walking around right now and doing my chores for me? Yes, of course. But I still think we're a little while away from that. And it's going to require a lot of data. I mean, these robots need to learn your environment, need to learn what a plate looks like, need to learn what different people look like, and everything as well, and how to operate these things. So, although it's incredibly exciting, there's a lot of traction around it, and that was probably the hottest thing at CES this past year. I still think we're a little while away until robotics are in the home, but in the enterprise space, it's being used constantly. And I think that's incredibly exciting. And I think we're also seeing a lot of different cities. I don't know about the city you're in, but living in Baltimore, I don't see any robotics food delivery operators yet. Like I know Coco and Chick-fil-A has its own robotic delivery service. I don't know, Dom, do you ever see any where you live?
Oh, I live in Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So every time when I travel to more like a San Francisco city, I can see Waymo, right?
Yeah.
The car, right? And the good thing about Waymo is that there are good and bad. For example, one time I think there are shortage of the electricity or something, and then
Mm.
Waymo just stopping in the middle of the road because if
Oh,
there's no sensor, right? Then how can the car be moved? It will crash, right? So you see like the traditional way if you have a taxi driver even though if the city out of shortage or something disconnected with the wi-fi or something it, we can still operate right but for
yeah.
waymo it's just I saw the news it seems like a lot of waymo just stopped there because it couldn't
Wow.
move yeah but it's also dangerous right because what if you stop in the middle of the road. It's kind of annoying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. But you can see it's very interesting. Every time when I went to San Francisco, I can see Waymo, and you can see all the sensors and trying to capture
Yep.
the whole thing. And there's nobody, no one sit in the driver's seat, and only passenger. and passenger, can, hop on the taxi. And for a lot of people, they think, oh, it's probably safer. It's interesting because, for example, like you think, oh, there are a lot of, true crime. I know it's very rare, but people still feel like, ah, I don't want to talk to people but when I
Yeah.
drive, and it's probably safer if you operate that way. But I can see, sometimes, because you see Waymo, the if it can operate successfully in San Francisco, which is a chaos. Every time when I drive there, I was like, oh God, I always driving in a circle. Why? Because sometimes there's a one way, and there are a lot of things, and especially we have, like, the lightweight cart, right? Like the
Mhm.
train or something, and kind of mess up everything. So it's just like a very, very crazy. And I think a Waymo still, survive there, right? And they got a lot of really good data. So I think it's just like you said, it all relies on the physical data. And for robot, because right now, as far as I know, you need somebody to use VR or something, operate
Yeah,
remotely to do the chore for you.
exactly.
Is Yeah, what do you see how long it can be more autonomous without somebody peeping to your home and trying to grab a milk for you? That's kind of weird.
Yeah. I know it is funny, when you think about it that, yeah, a lot of times, like, these robots can't figure something out, and someone has to remotely come and operate and teleoperate them and essentially do the task for it, right? And, regarding a timeline, I have no idea. I think if someone tells you that they have a timeline in mind, they probably don't even know either, right? But I mean, like you said, a lot of it requires us data, and I think the quicker that they're in people's homes, and almost unfortunately, a lot of it is going to be almost like as test dummies, right? But the sooner that they're in people's homes or in more warehouses or in the public more and just doing more tasks, that's the faster it's going to learn, and the faster that we can, have fully autonomous physical AI, assistants in our homes. So it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of data, and even then, it's not going to be perfect. But it's that slow progression, that's going to allow us to get to where we want. So yeah, that's physical AI is one of the major trends I'm seeing outside of XR. I think the other obvious one is in the health tech industry. Right. I mean, every friend I know now, if they don't have an Aura ring, they have one of the Whoop bracelets, right? Or something like it. And I think that's a really exciting trend. People are taking ownership of their health and of their bodies and of what they're eating and their sleep too. I feel like I'm a 90s kid. I feel like growing up, when I was graduating college, it was like hustle culture, right? It was almost like, what's the least amount you can sleep in order to be successful? How much work can you do to be
Mm,
successful, right?
mm,
But I love that, younger generations are now thinking, oh no, what is this doing to my body?
mm,
The time that I am awake, how well am I operating now?
mm,
And a lot of like health tech, you're able to get real data from that and say, oh, I only slept 6 hours last night, and only three of it was like, real hours of sleep. And that's why I don't feel so good today. That's why I'm feeling a little groggy. And so I love people taking ownership of their health as well. I should probably do more of that. But no one's perfect. But I love seeing more health tech in, as a hot trend right now.
Yeah, and just like you said that, yeah, right now people are taking care of their body and also my body, soul, right? For example, like a more like a meditation, and
Yeah.
also last week I interviewed Avi, and
Hmm.
he mentioned that because of agentic AI, or those like cloco, right?
Hmm.
It's like a you, it's it changes the way that we develop a software or do anything like a digital product. For example, he said that he will go out, walk around trying to figure out what he's going to create for 6 hours and come back and just write, put all the command and let it run for an hour. And I was like, yeah, that's so true though, because you see the execution become so fast. For example, like if I come up with an idea, I can pretty much, put everything down and it will be executed. But you see like uh the product is always average, right?
Mhm.
You need to, I think the hardest thing it becomes like what need to be done, or what's the task, or why I'm doing it, like why, what, how, right? Why I
Mhm.
do it, how I do it, and why and what task am I going to do, and how I'm going to do the execution is the how. So I think before we just, for me, I was focusing on the execution, and once I come up with an idea, it took very long time to execute. But now it's, I feel like I constantly think of why. Why am I doing this? What types of problem I'm solving? Think more than the execution, because all the execution is more like AI is working on it. So
Sure.
more like a problem solving, and also come up with tasks. We saw like, oh, come up with tests is easy, but come up with a test that makes sense and build up your product, not detaching your product, make your product lose directions. I think
Mhm.
right now, developers have another, types of challenge that is solving problem, like the core, right? So I
Mhm.
think that is a very interesting ways or developers approach compared to the traditional way of doing it.
Yeah, I love that. No, thanks for sharing. That's a fun thought that like the idea now is more important than the execution because you can speed run the execution almost, right, with AI. So yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what do you see, for example, like the applications for example, like for spatial AI, physics AI, and also health tech? What types
Mhm.
of applications that you see, like the your sponsors, or the companies work with you, like they find out that what types of current problems that they are trying to solve? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, a lot of the companies that I work with personally that come to AWE, I would say about 50, 60% of them are focused more in the enterprise or industrial spaces, which of course there's always problems to solve there, right? I mean, all of these industrial companies are looking at margins or looking at, hey, how can we save our employees not even just 1 hour, but even like minutes, right? I mean, of course, there's applications that save hours, but and I would say a lot of the applications right now regarding XR or physical AI and how enterprises are thinking about it are just like, how do all these things work together? And spatial AI is such a big part of that. I mean, all of these devices and smart glasses, things like that, are taking in a lot of data that's going to be used for physical AI for the near future. And so it's really interesting to see the convergence between AI and XR, and we like to look at all these different industries as like their own silos, when really I think we should be thinking about all these different industries as a network almost, because of all the connections, because of all the things that can collaborate with each other to make the final tool that an enterprise is going to use, right? I mean, I think about how much we think about a few years ago, how much companies were investing in virtual reality for training. And there's, of course, still doing that and still saving a lot of money and a lot of time doing that. But think about now companies have hundreds of headsets and they're like, well, what do I do with this? Right. And so there are companies who, although we talked about, Meta discontinuing some of their Meta for Business side of it, there's businesses and companies like Arbor XR or Manage XR that are specifically focused in device management to say, hey, you have 100 headsets in Wisconsin and 100 headsets in Europe and this and that. Here's how you can look at all of those and track how your staff are using them, how much time they're putting into them, what applications they're using, and have like real data so that hey, this is working, this isn't working. We're finding that people are not enjoying this training module. So I think like the data behind a lot of the applications are becoming incredibly important so that hey, our investments are working or they're not. How can we adapt them? And so when I think about like applications for enterprises, a lot of enterprises are, I think we're not giving them enough credit. A lot of them are really adopting technology, fairly quickly. And of course, that takes executive buy-in, and that's a whole nother problem internally for these corporations. But they are adopting these things. But I don't think they're assessing their adoption and their investments enough. And that's where a lot of the data, is really going to become important. And also, like I said, looking at these technologies as a network as opposed to, hey, we have one person who's focused in XR at our company, one person who's focused in AI, one person who's focused in connectivity and IoT. Let's think about all these people on one team instead.
Yeah, I think right now I can see all the technology start merging, right? Even I saw Nvidia last like at their event. They even create like a nano cloud, right? Like the
Mm,
open cloud, like put the cloud and with their entire cloud system, and then you can subscribe and become your personal assistant. So there are a lot of you see like hardware, and also I think Nvidia is like a heavily invest a lot of autonomous EV car, right? And just like you said that the physical AI or spatial AI, I think because right now everybody is more focusing on LLM, right?
yeah.
The text prompt. I would say in education field, still there are a lot of faculties or administrators are still working on trying to catch up all the trends in the industry, right? I think education is one of the oldest industry, right? So a lot, and they have like their different. I would say education has totally different systems than industry. Education, you need to, there are layers of certificate, diploma in order for you to achieve something. And if you have some special title, for example, doctor or something, everybody respect you, right? It's like a very hierarchical types of things, right? And compare with industry is more like a customer driven. If your product, right, if you create something, no matter how good, for example, your title, like, oh, I've been in this industry for 20 years. I have doctor degree. But if your product didn't work, then you just yeah, compare with, for example, like a 19 years old kid, high school kid, and come up with a product that everybody buys. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like there are a lot of interesting dynamic in the industry, and people usually will, you can just directly see the number, see the trend, and there are a lot of different dynamic. But in the academic field, it's more like, what's your credential of
Hmm.
speaking this word? Like there are a lot of credential needed, or like I just realized, wow, that there are a lot of hierarchies, and especially in this old industry, it's more like a people wanna give, for example, grants or opportunities for people they know. So it's a trust, right? And always people in the industry for a very long time will naturally be the lead, right? And
Hmm.
it's a very safe industry. For example, once you become a turn-in faculty, nobody can fire you. It's like you are super safe. So
Hmm.
it's also good for academic freedom, but it's also on the other side. It's kind of like a little castle, right? So yeah, I'm recently in this industry, and I realized that wow, this is very interesting. Right now, everybody focus on LLM, but I think just like you said, that physical AI, right, spatial AI, right, and especially for example, EV, right, and also
Hmm.
recently I joined. I went to Lyft Summit and I saw a lot of drone and pilot. Right now, there
Hmm.
are a lot of pilot shortage and especially drone shortage. And through some small, types of like a um, aircraft, very small version.
Hmm.
They are starting training high school student, and within 5 days, you can get the license. You can be the pilot.
Wow.
5 days. I was like, wow. Can I? Can I? Can I join? Because it's really really cool. Because you see, like a drone. I just started learning the drone aviation industry, and I started realize, wow, actually, this is area that is a little bit. I mean, we explore different types of application, but this one
Yeah.
is the one that has a lot of potential, right? For example,
Mhm.
you can take the passenger air taxi, right, and air cargo you can ship, right, and also emergency, right, firefighter, right. LA, before there were a lot of fires, right,
Sure.
so for example, like you can rescue people, right, and also medical emergency, right, you
Yeah.
can, it's faster, right. And
Exactly.
also, every time when aircraft fly, you can always collecting data such as weather, right? Wind, those local data that Google cannot catch, right? They have a super big model, right? Using satellite, but they couldn't get
Mhm.
into more like a grounded wind, humid text, all those like more detailed
Mm.
air, yeah, the information, the data that drone can catch. So I just
Mhm.
realized that, wow, this is opening up another brand new world that we should be aware of. And it's also tied to space because it's lower altitude, right? And higher
Mhm.
altitude, it will be, for example, like building space station,
Mhm.
asteroid mining. Every time when I listen to a lot of crazy podcasts or shows, I was like, wow, and, I listened to another one that is, I think one of the, Australia professor trying to, rejuvenize people, right? They
Mhm.
said that, "Oh, your DNA is just like a disc, like a CD disc,
Okay.
and when you keep playing the disc, there will be some scratch," right? That is the reason why you get old. And also, for example,
Oh.
like when you play piano, another example is that when you play piano, at the beginning, it loses a couple of keys, but the piano, the music is still fine, right? It's like your DNA or RNA start, every time when it duplicates, sometimes the code will start messing up, right?
Mm.
Yeah, and the more keys it lose, the weirder or the worse music will become. So it represent more like you see, because DNA and RNA is our blueprint. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, and they said that right now they were able to rejuvenize the mouse, that mouse now, and they are trying to within 5 years they are trying to help everybody just by drinking something. I don't know, just to, you know, according to that doctor said that erase that scratch,
Mhm.
right? And also, just to make sure our original DNA can, keep the same without, losing its information.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very interesting. There are a lot of like, just like you said, that emerging tech, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I love the CD metaphor actually is a really good one because you're exactly right. I remember, of course, my CD players, back in the day, and I think that's a really good way to describe getting old and kind of the struggles that come with it. So that's fun.
Yeah, yeah. And also, how do you see, for example, like the physical AI and spatial AI and other industry? For example, like I can see recently because of the war, and there are a lot of, for example, drone. I think that the reason why there are a lot of government budget putting drone is just because the current government, right?
Sure.
They wanna heavily invest on or like an aircraft. So, what do you see those types of like physical AI and like what types of industry or what types of applications besides um, health tech, uh, what types of like a trend that will kind
Mhm.
of like a merging types of AI, XR, and also physical AI, spatial AI. What types of industry might get benefits?
Yeah, I think you mentioned defense, and you mentioned the war. I think, of course, defense is a big part of that, especially when you look at like visual positioning systems or VPS. When I would consider that a big part of spatial AI and just information gathering from our spatial, from spaces that we're in. And so when you look at visual positioning systems for defense and what's going on, not only just in, Iran, but especially in, Ukraine, that's been incredibly important so that we know we have information on when supplies are coming or where our people are or where the other side is. So I think when it comes to just information gathering for warfare, that's incredibly important. And I think especially when you think of safety of the people, the men and women and people who are fighting and protecting us. My dad's former army, so that's incredibly important to me. And spatial AI is a big part of that. Keeping our people safe and just being as informed as possible about what's going on in the world. But I think when you look at other industries, to be honest, I don't think there's a single industry that it's not affecting. When you look at, especially, I mean, even maybe things you wouldn't think of. I use VR all the time, even for meditation. I've been meditating since I was 19 years old. It's a big part of who I am, and just I like to think it's made me a pretty stable person because of it. I don't know if before that at 18, 19, I was the most stable person, but meditation's helped me a lot with that. But XR is even affecting the way people are, retreating into themselves and learning about themselves. And so, I transparently, of course, we can talk about manufacturing and pharmaceutical and healthcare and all the surgeries that have been done using XR to see a break in someone's arm without having to cut into them or all these other training surgeons. Of course, we can look at all those different industries, but I think those are maybe a little more obvious. I think just outside of that, there's not a single industry it's not touching. And I'm excited for the day. Even a lot of like heads-up displays are already on cars that you can buy, newer models. But I'm excited for the future where not only autonomous driving, but also personal driving is I can be better informed about my surroundings because of heads-up displays, which are essentially an extension of, augmented reality or mixed reality. So to answer your question, it's every industry, I think. So maybe that's a cop-out answer, but I think it's a real answer.
Yeah, yeah. When I was in Lift Summit,
Mhm.
there's a kind of interesting phenomena and start with the regulation. I think this government is very more loosened for for the regulation. So before it's very strict for example, like FAA, and also I remember when I was in the event, I put my cloth, you know, and then every time when there's an algorithm, I just keep clone it because
Yeah.
it's just like wow, it's a lot of interesting information. For example, like before there was a regulation called Part 107, and now becomes Part 108. And what's the difference between those two? Part 107 is that it's very strict. For example, if you operate a drone, right?
Mhm.
um, every that drone needs to be within the sight of the operator just to ensure that the drone is not doing anything. But because I think a lot of people complain, hey, we want autonomous drone. So part 108 just being released probably last year, very recently. It's helping autonomous drone to pass the regulation. Otherwise, autonomous drone, like, hey, it's already operated by AI directly. How can anybody, within that person's eyesight, and that drone can only operate within the sight of that single operator that
Mm.
won't meet the request. So part 108, that regulation is more like a um, it doesn't have to be, within that one person's eyesight. So we can see there might be a lot of, you see, because of that law start losing it. So there will be a lot of autonomous, you see, like a aircraft. But for example, like aircraft, um, people start worry about, hey, what if there's a accident? Because somebody, it's very dangerous, and somebody might die because you see like such a huge thing, right, and crash, and plus
Mm.
the gravity. you know, it's very dangerous, especially in the density, like a lot of population, like a Bay Area. So I think
Sure.
for those types of regulation, safety, I think data is very important and real time and get the right data. So I can see you see right now SpaceX or Elon Musk trying to connect all his company together into one, and I can see why, because you see in order for autonomous drone to work well you need satellite and satellite
Mhm.
space. So you see Tesla, right, and that, and also AI, powered by AI. So feel like wow, everything goes well together. Yeah, yeah. So I just realized that wow, this is such a very crazy, and especially I don't know, I heard somebody said that there might be a chance, once SpaceX shoot a lot of robots to Mars, and
Mhm.
then we can, use Neuralink to upload our uh, mind
Hmm.
and sync with the robot and live in Mars. And I was like, wow, this is very
I don't know if we're ready for that. That might be. I'm gonna let someone else test that for me. Yeah.
this
I love
is
what you mentioned on,
mm,
sorry to cut you off. I love what you mentioned on regulation because
mm,
I'd imagine for the drone industry or the aircraft industry,
mm,
that's so important, right? Because like you mentioned, there's all these regulated airports and airspace that they constantly have to consider. And there's a lot of areas where you can't operate drones because of regulation. And that's such a big part for XR as well. I mean, when we talked about, of course, smart glasses, especially Meta Ray Bans now, which are the
yeah,
most, adopted.
yeah,
I think we all, regulators and policymakers, and also internally at at these large tech companies, they have to constantly be thinking about the policies and regulations around it. Because if you think about it, yes, we all have, smartphones, and we have for decades now, and we can pull them out and take video, and people are aware of that. But when you're wearing glasses, wearing a camera
yeah,
that can, record people at any point, or even maybe eventually overlay content on top of people. What does that mean? Are people ready for that? Does there have to be approval and regulation around that? And so there's a lot of conversation that are happening at all these major tech companies and with policymakers,
mm,
not only in the US and Europe, but around the world, because there's so many questions around it. So, I have, relationships and friends of people who are policy, work on policy teams at these tech companies, and I'm not envious of their jobs, but because they have to answer so many of these questions. But I think it's really important to talk about and think about when it comes to eventually mass adoption and everyone wearing something on their faces that can overlay content or record or provide so much valuable resources to day-to-day life.
yeah, yeah. For example, like before, Meta had a lot of like issues, right? People from Kenya reported they saw a lot of something they shouldn't see from
Uh,
somebody's, smart AR glass. And because I usually every morning I wear Ray-Ban, Generation 2, the Ray-Ban glass, and listening to my audio, right? Because
Mhm.
I walk my dog. And sometimes when I wear, some headphones, if I wear too long, I feel like my ear kind of, stuck something, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't feel comfortable. So I usually wear my Ray-Ban glass and listen to the audiobook and just walk the dog. And I
Mhm.
was like, I think, if you wanna take a photo or record anything, you need to say, "Hi, Meta, do something," right?
Mhm.
And it seems like, when Meta recorded all those private things for the owner, it's like unaware, because who will, go to the restroom and say, "Hey, Meta, record,"
Sure.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably automatically trigger, constantly sensory.
Yeah.
Yeah, which cause a lot of, and not make people not trust that product, because hey, I still remember one internet meme that, or like a photo that Mark
Mhm.
Zuckerberg put a tape on the camera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see, like there are something that if you are not aware, sometimes camera can auto turn on its own, which
Yeah,
might not be the user intent, right? So I think
yeah.
for the smart AR glass, and I remember before I wear smart AR glass back in 2022 or 2023, still
Mhm.
a long time ago, first generation of Ray-Ban, I went to Habit and buy a hamburger. And I remember I put the light on. And during that time, there are not many smart AR glass.
Yeah.
So I put the light on. So there's like a green or I don't know, yellow, red line. I just go there, record the entire process, and I look at directly, where my recording video Ray-Ban look at the staff, and they just, like, oh, there's nothing happen, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
wow, I'm wearing this and I'm recording everything. You didn't even aware of it. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I do think that unless you wear something that is too exaggerate, like you wear Vision Pro or Quest
Sure.
3, that is too obvious. But if you wear like even Ray-Ban during the first generation was pretty chunky. People still feel like, oh, okay, doesn't feel anything. So
Yeah.
I think like a policy maker, need to protect the consumer and set up some rules to help us to not being interrupt or record something that make
Yeah.
people, yeah, uncomfortable or something.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. Yep.
Cool. So, yeah. So, what do you see, for example, like the next generation for XR in education or workforce? Because this is also a really huge topic in higher education or California Community College. This
Mhm.
is also a huge topic because you see AI replace a lot of white collar, right? And
Yeah.
also, how can XR assist education or help workforce development?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love how earlier you mentioned education's one of the oldest industries because as soon as you said it, it was like, oh, of course it is. But I guess it's something you don't think of, right? And so when you ask about how XR can, help contribute to education, I think it's in a lot of ways. I'm thinking about, I'm an uncle and have two nephews, one who's about to graduate high school, but one who's a little younger and is in middle school. And one who's in middle school, you would have to, I don't even know if I could pay him to, get off his phone or, take away a video game or something like that. And so I think about like his motivation, right? And the ways that the younger generations are learning. And I think this also applies to the corporate world. When we look at education, like gamification is such a big part of, like motivation and why people, kind of getting people to want to do something. And so I'm thinking about the ways that XR can help bring some excitement into general education. Right. I mean, I even feel like when I graduated college back in 2015, and I'm thinking about like the textbooks I was using in college. Even back then, it felt so dated. And I'm thinking, hey, why are we still reading out of a textbook? Why do I still have to order these, $300 books? There's no way that a kid going to college now is interested in learning that way. And so how can we, make this content come to life through XR? It doesn't need to be in a VR headset, but maybe it's simply, there are companies who are, allowing you to use your mobile phone and bringing a lot of this content that's on a page to life in a digital format. And I think that even is a lot, not only the stickiness of that knowledge in someone's brain is going to help it become like a visual representation. Because I know a lot of people, everyone learns in different ways, right? But a visual learner, how am I going to read something and memorize it that way? But instead of seeing something, come to life from a page, is going to be a lot easier to retain. And so I'm thinking about, gamification and just bringing content to life for kids now that aren't used to maybe reading from physical books, are more attuned to audio books, are more attuned to podcasts. or of course video games and online content. So I think that's really what's going to help, future generations, and outside of course, all the content that you could bring to life in VR as well that could, help with education. So yeah. What
Yeah,
about
and
you? Yeah.
yeah, I think for the education side, I have a lot of like a yeah, like because I am getting a lot of connection with faculties. It's
Right.
interesting that VR is not accessible in higher
Mm,
education. Why? And the I remember the first time when I heard of that, I was like, no, it's very accessible. It's da 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 da. But I think right now the higher education's accessibility is very different from like the headset accessibility. Those two are totally separate concepts. For higher education, it's more of a their definition is that every single student with disability will be able to access the content, no
mm,
matter it's a high income or low income. So,
mhm,
which means VR actually not accessible because, for example, low income student couldn't even get a headset. If they
yeah,
couldn't get a headset, they couldn't get a content. So, and I think around this June there will be another super strict accessibility being reinforced into teachers' curriculum.
mm,
Before you see like a lot of teacher can go to this place to find things, right? But if any student with disability or the low income or without Wi-Fi or without a lot of different things, it seems like your content needs to meet all the students' needs. So I think the basic way, the most innovative way will be video. It's
mhm,
really sad that, it becomes like your accessibility is good for the majority of students, but you're also limited to super high innovative things. For example, like I create like some 3D models and represent some cells, and I show some accessibility faculty, and he said that, hey, there will be a lot of like a super strict accessibility that you know every instructor need to follow. So, for
mhm,
example, you need to check the blindness, right? And also everything need to be have different alternation. For example, if student couldn't see, you need to have a voice, right? For
uh,
example, like if you use the accessibility tools in a lot of education softwares, you can do tap tap tap, or you can change to audio, right? And you can make the text bigger, right? All those things need to be reinforced into the XR design, which I was like, wow. I mean, I purposely make the text a little bit smaller so it's easier to see the whole thing. But you see, like if the we need to consider of all the possibility that student couldn't access, then the XR thing might not be as good as
mhm,
it should be.
mhm,
But you see, like it's also good and bad, right? And it's very hard. For example, like if there's a 3D model, student need to be able to. There's a alt, AALT, right? Alt, like
mhm,
all the images for the blind or low vision student. They need to kind of when the uh, um, screen readers read things, they need to know what's that. And how can you put a alt tag into a 3D model or some interesting animation or something? So there are a lot of things that need to run through a lot of accessibility. Yeah, and also software. If you want to sell to education, you need to go through their IT, right? And
mhm,
security and how the third party handles the data of the student. For example, like the student's email name, if they are minor, the third party, how, for example, if I put Meshy, if I put like a
mhm,
Cloud, they need to know how Cloud handles students' private data. And
mhm,
which, oh, yeah, so there are a lot of things that I would say that's why it's a castle. It's just to get faculty, you want to try your product because I feel like they are already pretty stable. Their job is very stable. So uh, it's the less competitive with the industry. So whether they want to change or not is in it's their free will, right? They don't
Mhm.
have to. Yeah, they have their own academic freedom. So I would say, yeah, I mean, work with people like-minded.
Yeah, yeah. The accessibility portion is really interesting because you're exactly right. Like every level of income or, people
Yeah.
with disabilities or around the world all deserve access to education. But what does that look like for them? And yeah, that's a really good point. Very few people can need or can afford a headset, but what does that look like that they can still have access to content that is, formed to them and helps them because there are so many
Yeah.
different types of learners. So I know, of course, you work so closely with faculty and are like the boots on the ground, and of course, work in the XR industry. So it's really interesting to hear your insight on like that convergence. So.
I just feel like right now the entire education still debating whether they can know AI policy. Like
Mhm.
I would say at least right now probably a little bit reduced, but before it was like there are a lot of fight back about the AI in education field. And teacher just said that, hey, right now, also, for example, a couple of colleges, they are anti VR. And I was like, oh God, anti VR. It's that they are already anti AI and now they are anti VR because first AI is not accessible. They don't have
Right.
budget to buy. And if you have VR content, nobody can access. It's very annoying. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, and also teacher doesn't know what students is doing anything, right? And the teacher want to teach something and there's no VR content, right? There are a lot of issues. And also, yeah, and also it's just a lot of interesting things you saw is natural, but it's not natural in education field. For example, like some teachers will say, I have no AI policy. Student
Hmm.
zero AI. If I notice you use AI, you are F. Go back again. Yeah. So
Wow.
you see like the teacher and school or like you see like the chancellor's office. I would say right now still we have academic freedom. We encourage teacher to do AI, to use AI, but we couldn't force them to implement AI. We just encourage them. So there are still a lot of faculties who are more senior. They do whatever they like, pretty much. If they don't want, they don't have to.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's a and I heard a lot of assessment. I think the problem about no AI policy or AI policy or bothers faculty are more of a assessment problem because right now there are a lot of softwares that you can embed it on in Canvas. Canvas is the most popular learning management system, LMS,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
students just use a plugin or you can use Claude. Uh, yeah, and then just finish the entire quiz for you or like a writing essay, right? So, and teachers were like, "Oh God!" Before, no, when there's no AI, they know which student knows the thing pass, and now
Mhm.
using AI, all the original, ways of assessing student need to be changed. If you don't
Wow.
change, student just keep cheating. So uh, yeah, for example, oral presentation, right? Make
Mhm.
student present in front of everyone. But I question, hey, in the future there will be smart AR class. They just look at
Yeah.
the test to their class, right? And also, for example, like focus on process instead of the, teacher will see your entire draft, your sketch instead of you see like just the final perfect product, right? Because you know yeah. So, and also, uh, like a critique. For example, one of the social, or like the the professor that teach politics that the way she did the assessment that I think is pretty creative. She was teaching politics, so she asked students to um she wrote like a couple of assignment and asked students to put those questions into different chatbot and ask student which chatbot's answer is better. And
Hmm.
then why is better, why is not good, why some chatbot has bias. So it's like I've already know you are going to use chatbot, but I want you to just use the chatbot and come up with your thoughts why this chatbot has bias. Which party do you think this chatbot belongs to? Or why this chatbot answer this way? For example, DeepSeek, right?
Yep.
If I ask anything related to China, it will just say, "Sorry, I couldn't answer this question."
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I think there are a lot of creative ways to force faculty to change as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
yeah.
you have to
So
you have to know how they're cheating or how they're going around things. They're not writing answers on their hands anymore and then looking at them during the test, right? They're
no,
much
no.
more advanced now, so you have to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And in the future, if smart AR glasses prescriptions, right? And
Yeah.
student get into the classroom and taking tests and say, I need this glasses with
Mhm.
AI feature with all the cheating functions because I, uh, yeah, for accessibility, you need to allow student to wear their glass. So yeah, so there are a lot of interesting perspective. And some people even said that, oh, we use all the AI. Like a lot of faculty right now use AI to grade student, to
Okay.
give student feedback. And for me, it's more like maybe some small things, but the final, you probably still need human to grade. I don't know,
Sure.
but that's my thought. Because yeah, I mean, student use AI to write essay for you and use use AI to grade. And it just feels like AI is learning everything and human is not doing
Yeah.
anything.
There's no human component almost, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It's just come out with the base question like, what's the point of having a human professor there if you can
Yeah.
automate everything on your teaching side? So yeah, it's a very interesting, yeah, like philosophy things. And what's the purpose of education, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, because right now, for example, teacher just said that, oh, I want student meets my learning. It's called SLO, student learning objectives, right? So you
Right.
need to write down a lot of learning goals, right? So uh, a lot of teachers still use that, but right now it seems like a lot of things are outdated, and I start questioning what's the meaning of student learning goal. I mean, I understand that there's some certificate or learning goals student need to meet, but it feels like a student can easily use chatbot. Like for example, I learned all the aircraft, all the stuff just using Claude while I was in the conference, and I feel like wow, I know a lot in this field. So when there's a super smart, tutor and teacher feels like a yeah, so that's why teacher wanna ban it because it kind of threaten the authority of the teacher. Yeah, so I just feel like wow, there are just a lot of things in education that
Yeah.
yeah, we need to rethink about what's the education purpose. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. Like I said, you're the boots on the ground working with so many faculty that are asking these questions. So it's a really awesome insight. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So, what's your advice for students who wants to get into XR industry, or for example, like who wants to be more like you, like working on so many fun, events, joining a lot of events, and knowing a lot of vendors, working with them. How
Yeah.
can for example, what types of advice for the college students to enter into more spatial AI, physical AI, or XR field.
Yeah, for sure. I think number one, like be familiar with trends and what are topics right now that are really important and gaining real traction, and make yourselves familiar with that. And then also I growing up as someone who has, all my career experiences in sales and communications and marketing, like, don't be afraid to reach out to people as well. I think there's a lot of like faux pas or some like taboo around just like connecting with people that you don't know. And so don't hesitate to, reach out to people through email, through LinkedIn, just to ask questions and learn. When I joined a new industry, in a past life when I was working in sports, I had no familiarity on what it took to be successful in sports sponsorship sales. And so I would literally reach out to people that were in positions that I wanted to be, just to set up a call and pick their brain. And I think one of the best ways to learn is through people who have already done what you want to do. And so I implore people to, reach out to experts. And although not everyone's going to want to have a call with you or say yes, the people that do could be potential mentors, could potentially open the door to you. And I think we've all learned, over the last few decades that, you always hear it's not about, what you do, but it's about who you know. So I think this creating a network and just a basis for, the industry that you want to join is so important. And of course, also, although following trends is really important, if you have an idea and you see something and you're seeing a lot of results and feedback in something that you're creating and that you want to do, and you see other examples that are successful, you don't have to immediately jump into what's hot. Keep following what you know, what you love. And that's the thing about emerging technology, is that it is secular and these things do come back. So although maybe you've spent a lot of time building for something for VR, and you're like, wait a second, I'm seeing that people are going away from VR. Don't worry, it's going to come back. And so follow what you love, follow your passion, and build a network. And keep following, without sounding like a corny motivational speaker, follow your dreams, follow your heart. I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to be important.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think just like you said that, just keep working on things, right? I think, for example, like XReality, before I was thinking about, oh, this can be more like a training, right, for XR. But later on, I just realized, wow, this feels like a little harder to keep maintaining all the up to date courses, keep training. I feel like, wow, this is a lot of work, and especially there are AI, right? Right. So
Mhm.
you can, use AI to do a lot of things. So I make it extra more like podcast focus. And right now I'm building something that I have users who are, a lot of them are my colleague, and then keep asking feedback. And I think that the most important thing for the product to be successful is working closer to the user, because I feel like sometimes we have our own, founder has his or her own obsess, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
this has to be this way. I know this. When I was working on this, this is my vision. But I think before I had that types of mentality, but right now I'm more like, whatever user want, we are solving users' problem. So I'm trying to serve one user and make that one user very happy, and maybe
Mhm.
I can branch out to the second user. I am like linear my thoughts, and also more user centered, because at the end, user needs to use and user need to love, right?
Yep.
So.
Exactly. And through that, you're building a community too, right? Which is so important. And that's where you can get a lot of the feedback and you can adapt your product based on their needs. So I love that mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the best way to learn is to teach, right? So for example, like I was grow up in a teacher's family. My
Mhm.
parents, my family, everybody is a teacher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, my younger sister currently is working for a Taiwanese government, but it's like also teacher types of,
Mhm.
managing high school teacher, something like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, so yeah, I think by because when I was 7, I started teaching. When I was seven
Wow.
years old, I was my mom's assistant.
Wow, that's funny.
Every time when I, get off the school, my mom just asks me to come to her classroom, and there are a lot of students behind. My mom is teaching elementary school, right?
Mhm,
First grade. And I need to always sit there and helping my mom to monitor and kind of teach little kid to teach them like a math or Chinese, or like a geography, all
mhm.
those types of fun stuff. So yeah, so I think the best way to learn is to teach. Yeah, so that's why I
Yeah.
start my YouTube channel. At the beginning, I was teaching a lot of tutorial, and later on, I do podcasts. And the reason why I do podcasts is that every time when I start something, it means that I want to learn that thing. For example, when
Mhm,
I write a book, I want to learn that knowledge and writing, and the result is just the result of my learning.
mhm. Yeah.
So I think by explaining something super complicated, right, to other people, that other people understand, this is also a process of learning, right?
Yeah.
The more you do that, and I think podcasts also help, right? The more events, speaker event you join or podcasts you get in, better articulate a
Mhm.
complicated idea. Yeah, it's easier for people to learn. So for me, I'm more like a just just do what you like, and also don't care about. For example, right now my podcast, I've already, I think, a couple of hundred, but I have two podcasts. This is the second one. This is
Mhm.
probably episode 81. I always think that maybe postpone the gratification, because a lot of people just like, oh, after 5 episodes, I want like a hundred subscriber, thousand. But it's
Yeah.
not working that way. It's usually like you work for 5 years, and it's like nothing happened. And until sometimes there's like I don't know, just like people just start looking at you, and you just start, going up. So, um,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah, so
consistency is key when it comes to that, or when it comes to anything, right? If you wanna be good at something, you have to keep doing it, and everyone's bad at the start of something, right? Or unless you're just naturally gifted, but you still have to keep progressing and stay consistent. So that's exactly what you're doing. I mean, 81 episodes, that doesn't happen overnight. So
yeah, yeah. And I find out I can catch or like having conversation more naturally with
Mhm.
people. Before I feel awkward about talking anything, but now I feel like, wow. In the beginning, I was like, I remember the first episode, I had like question one, question two, question three. And I
Sure.
always like look at the time. When should I start asking the question two, and how can I get in? And I was like very miserable. But now I was like, yeah, let's just talk like conversationally, instead of
Yeah.
trying to jump in. So I think time to time, things will get better. Yeah.
Completely. No, and I appreciate you. I think your style too has made me feel really at ease, and it shows a lot of the work that you put in. So yeah, thanks.
Cool, cool. So what's that one thing that you still like to share that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I think, of course, I want to shamelessly promote AWE. I've been, the team and myself been working hard, and it's coming up June 15th through the 18th. So it's crazy to say that just in 2 months, the XR community will be gathering again in Long Beach, California. And I look forward to seeing you there, Dom, in person. But yeah, of course, would love to see a lot of your listeners there, people who are already in the XR industry or wanting to learn more about 3D, XR, and AI. We'd love to invite them out to the event. So obviously check out our website, but feel free to reach out to me directly at Nate at AWEXR. Would love to connect and see how we can get you involved. But when it comes to the industry, once again, I'm just excited for mass adoption and just being on this journey. And like you said, staying consistent and being patient. We've all had smartphones for a while now, and I'm excited for the next step of, personal computing. And I think eventually, yes, will that be on someone's face? Probably. Will that look like a Neuralink in someone's brain? who knows, maybe as well, right? But I think, just staying consistent and, I'm lucky enough to work with so many amazing and intelligent people who are doing the work that could potentially make this happen in the future. So, the enterprise use cases are great and everything, but at the end of the day, I'm a consumer, I'm a person, I'm excited to where it'll benefit my day-to-day life and just make things a little easier, so that we can all focus on the things that we love and do on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So thank you so much for being in our episode. And that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. We release episodes weekly. If you enjoy this conversation, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube. Support us by giving us a follow and a 5-star rating, or subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Thank you and see you next time. Run. Run actually is human to human. So the other side, two lines, that's two. And then that part is human. Run, human. So two
Human to human.
to human.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, to human. So that is that word. So yeah, so if we can based on human and especially community college, we have a lot of different background of people. If we can give them like a more like personalized, and I think AI can really help us. But also we also address a lot of like AI issues such as privacy, data, right? So pretty much we just go around the world. Yeah. So yeah, I really appreciate Rick, and it was really inspiring conversation. And that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. We release episodes weekly. If you enjoy this conversation, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Support us by giving us a follow and a 5-star rating, or subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Thank you and see you next time.